50 years ago, Richard John Bingham, who most people knew as Lord Lucan, was accused of brutally killing Sandra Rivett, who was the nanny taking care of his children. And if that was not horrifying enough, he then tried to make his own wife the next victim. Luckily for her, she survived. But the most shocking twist in this whole story was that Lord Lucan never paid for what he did, because he disappeared shortly after. This is exactly why this case stayed a hot topic for so many years, and why all the theories about Lord Lucan being spotted and living a secret life somewhere became so popular. But now new evidence about what really happened to him has come out, and this mystery might finally be close to being solved. Though be warned, the truth is not a happy one. The night of November 7th, 1974, changed everything inside the Lucan family home, because inside 46, Lower Belgrave Street, the London home of Lord and Lady Lucan in Belgravia, someone was about to do something truly horrible. Sandra Rivett was a kind and hard-working young woman of 29, who worked as a nurse and nanny for the Lucan children. That night she was walking down the narrow staircase to the basement kitchen to make herself a simple cup of tea, when something absolutely shocking happened. An attacker who had been hiding down in the basement with a heavy lead pipe suddenly struck Sandra from out of nowhere, and this person kept hitting her with that pipe until she stopped moving completely. Nobody heard any of this happen, because Sandra had been hit so suddenly and so hard that she never even got the chance to understand what was going on, let alone try to fight back or cry out for help. The house stayed just as quiet as it always was, whenever the children were already in bed for the night. Upstairs, Sandra's boss, Lady Veronica, the woman of the house, had absolutely no idea about the horror that had just taken place down in that basement. But while she sat waiting for her trusted employee to come back, the attacker got to her first. She found herself standing face to face with the attacker, and was struck hard on the head, leaving her stunned and bleeding badly. Within just moments her hair was completely soaked in blood. But even through the initial shock and disbelief, Lady Veronica's will to stay alive kicked in, and she started desperately looking for a way out. She struggled free from the attacker's grip and ran out into the cold night air outside. Her screams traveled through the quiet, wealthy neighborhood of Belgravia, and everyone inside those grand old Georgian houses immediately knew that something terrible had happened nearby. Within just a few hours, detectives showed up and started piecing together exactly what had taken place. The evidence they found included the pipe used in the attacks. The pipe had been carefully wrapped in plaster tape, which showed clearly that the weapon had not just been grabbed randomly. The attack itself was not random either. The precise and planned way it was carried out showed that someone had thought this whole thing through carefully. The evidence painted a truly disturbing picture. And when Lady Veronica gave her own account of what happened that night, all suspicion quickly fell on one man, Lord Richard John Bingham, the 7th Earl of Lucan. Lord Lucan was no stranger to the high society world. He had been evacuated during World War II, before attending the famous Eton College, and serving with the Coldstream Guards in West Germany for 2 years. He quickly developed a real love for gambling, playing backgammon and bridge, and became one of the early members of an exclusive group of wealthy British gamblers at the Claremont Club. It was widely reported that despite his talent for looking like a glamorous and daring risk-taker, his losses usually ended up being much bigger than his winnings. Still, he quit his job at a London merchant bank and became a full-time professional gambler. For the next 15 years, he built up a reputation in gambling circles as Lord Bingham, well known for his expensive tastes, his love of racing powerboats, and even owning his own Aston Martin. In 1963, Lucan married Veronica Duncan. News of their engagement showed up in all the major newspapers of the time, and the two got married at Holy Trinity Church in Brompton. The ceremony was attended by some very prominent members of high society, including Princess Alice, the Countess of Athlone. The newlywed couple traveled to Europe for their honeymoon, Lucan, whose personal finances were not great at the time, got some much-needed help from his family. His father gave him a marriage settlement, meant to help pay for a bigger family home, and for any future additions to their family. Lucan used some of that money to pay back people he owed, and bought the house at 46 Lower Belgrave Street in Belgravia, fixing it up and decorating it the way Veronica liked. 2 months after the wedding, Lucan's father died from a stroke. This was bittersweet news for Lucan, because along with a large inheritance of £250,000, he also inherited his father's titles: Earl of Lucan, Baron Lucan of Castlebar, Baron Bingham of Melcombe Bingham, and Baronet Bingham of Castlebar, which also made his wife the Countess of Lucan. The couple moved into 46 Lower Belgrave Street in 1967. But the marriage did not last long, even though they had 3 children together. After the marriage completely fell apart in late 1972, he moved out to a nearby place in January of the following year, when they officially separated. The separation was anything but peaceful, as a really bitter fight over custody of the children began, which Lucan eventually lost. But Lucan could not handle losing, and became completely obsessed with getting his children back. He started by spying on his wife, and then moved on to secretly recording their phone calls. He later hired private detectives to keep up the same surveillance on her. He also brought in doctors, who claimed that his wife was suffering from depression and anxiety, and was therefore not fit to raise the kids. Veronica had fired the children's long-term nanny, which made Lucan very unhappy. After going through several nannies, Veronica finally chose a 26-year-old woman named Stefania Schockvist, to whom Veronica had confided that Lucan had once hit her with a cane, and had on one occasion pushed her down the stairs. Veronica apparently feared for her own safety, and told Stefania not to be surprised if he kills me one day. So Stefania eventually left the family. The exact reason was never made clear, but Lucan went around telling his friends that nobody wanted to work for Veronica, but Sandra Rivett chose to work for her anyway. This obsession with the kids, combined with growing legal costs and mounting gambling losses, started really taking a toll on Lucan's life, and his personal finances got much worse. This downward spiral did not sit well with Lucan at all, since he saw himself as a polished and sophisticated aristocrat. He was addicted to high-stakes gambling, spending night after night at the exclusive Claremont Club, alongside other wealthy and powerful men. His money troubles were widely known, and so were his bitter fights with Veronica, over money and custody of the children. On the night this horrific crime was committed against Sandra and Veronica, Veronica said that after putting the younger children to bed, at around 9 in the evening, Sandra had asked if she would like a cup of tea, before heading downstairs to the basement kitchen to make one. When Sandra did not come back, Veronica got worried and climbed down from the first floor, and called out to Sandra from the top of the basement stairs. That was when she was attacked, as she screamed for her life. Her attacker told her to shut up. Veronica later said that in that very moment, she recognized the voice of her own husband. The two continued to struggle and fight. She bit his fingers, and when he threw her face down onto the carpet, she managed to turn around and squeeze his private parts hard enough that he let go of her throat and gave up the fight. When she asked where Sandra was, Lucan tried to avoid answering, but eventually admitted that he had killed her. A shaken Veronica told her ex-husband that she could help him escape if only he would stay at the house for a few days until her injuries healed. Lucan actually believed this, and walked upstairs to check on his daughter in her room. Then he went into one of the bedrooms. When Veronica came in to lie down on the bed, he told her to put towels down first so she would not stain the bedding. Lucan asked her if she had any sleeping pills, and went into the bathroom to get a wet towel, supposedly to clean up Veronica's face. In that moment she realized her husband could not hear her from the bathroom, and she made her escape. She ran outside to a nearby pub called the Plumber's Arms. Lucan, realizing his ex-wife had gotten away, went to the home of Madeline Floorman in Chester Square, who was a parent of one of his daughter's school friends. This was around 10 in the evening, and Floorman was alone in the house. She had initially not answered the door, because she had received a confusing and unclear phone call, and had put the phone down. By the time she got to the door, the person was already gone. But there were bloodstains left behind, which, after being examined by forensic experts, were found to be a mix of two different blood types, A and B. After leaving there, Lucan called his mother and asked her to go collect the children from Lower Belgrave Street. According to what she told police later, her son said something about a terrible catastrophe at his wife's home. Lucan told his mother that he had been driving past the house when he spotted Veronica fighting with a man down in the basement. He said he had gone inside and found his wife screaming. The exact location from which Lucan made this call, and possibly the earlier call to Floorman, was never determined. The police forced their way into the home and found Sandra's body. Veronica was taken away by ambulance to St. George's Hospital. But before the authorities could get their hands on Lucan, he had completely vanished. For investigators, the pieces all seemed to fit together. When Detective Chief Superintendent Roy Ranson arrived at the crime scene, the divisional surgeon had already pronounced Sandra dead. Forensic officers and photographers had been called to the property. The first two officers who arrived at the scene discovered that the front door had been kicked in, with no other signs of anyone breaking in from the outside. A blood-stained towel was found in Veronica's bedroom on the first floor. The area around the top of the basement staircase was heavily covered in blood. A blood-stained lead pipe was lying on the floor. Pictures that had been hanging on the walls of the staircase were knocked down and scattered. A metal banister rail was damaged. At the very bottom of the stairs, 2 cups and saucers were sitting in a pool of blood. The light fitting at the bottom of the stairs was missing its light bulb. One was found sitting nearby on a chair, and blood was also found on several leaves in the garden out at the back of the house. When police searched Lucan's own apartment, they did not find anything unusual or out of place. On the bed, a suit and shirt were laid out, alongside a book about Greek shipping millionaires. His wallet, car keys, money, driving license, handkerchief, and glasses were all sitting on the bedside table. His passport was in a drawer. His blue Mercedes-Benz was parked outside, with a cold engine and a completely dead battery. But it was still very clear that Lucan had both the motive and the opportunity to carry out such a violent and planned crime. Reports said he drove to Uckfield in East Sussex to visit his friends the Maxwell Scotts, and that visit with Susan Maxwell Scott turned out to be the very last confirmed sighting of him. Susan's husband had called the detective in charge of the case and told him that Lucan had shown up at their home a few hours after the murder, and had spoken with his wife Susan while he was there. While at their house, Lucan had written 2 letters to his brother-in-law Bill Shand Kidd, and had posted them to his London address. Bill had quickly driven to London to read the letters, and he noticed that the letters were blood-stained. As he handed them over to the detective, the letter dated November 7, 1974 read, "Dear Bill, the most terrible circumstances came up tonight, which I briefly described to my mother, when I stopped the fight at Lower Belgrave Street, and the man left. Veronica accused me of having hired him. I took her upstairs and sent Frances up to bed, and tried to clean her up. She lay still for a bit, and when I was in the bathroom she left the house. The evidence against me is strong. In that Veronica will say it was all my doing. I will also lie low for a bit, but I am only concerned for the children. If you can manage it, I want them to live with you. Coutts Trustees, St. Martin's Lane. Mr. Wall will handle school fees. Veronica has shown her hatred for me in the past, and would do anything to see me accused. For George and Frances to go through life knowing their father had stood in a courtroom accused of attempted murder would be too much. When they are old enough to understand, explain to them the idea of paranoia and look after them. Yours ever, John." This letter did not accomplish what Lucan had hoped it would. The violence of the crime had shocked not just the local community, but the entire nation. Sandra Rivett was not just someone's employee. She was a daughter, a friend, and a woman who had cared deeply and genuinely for the children in her charge. And she had been brutally and senselessly murdered. 4 years after that, nobody heard anything from Lucan at all. Many people argued that his powerful and well-connected friends had helped him escape and get out of the country. More theories came forward, with people claiming they had spotted him living a secret life under a different name in another country. As the years went by, Lucan's disappearance became one of the most famous and talked about cases in all of UK history. A detective who led a brand new investigation into Lucan's disappearance